Okay. Yeah, I'm in the world's largest convention hall. There is broadcast media, print media, and two coffee stands that serve actually surprisingly good panini sandwiches, which I may take advantage of after I'm done with you guys here. I think I'll get maybe the cheesesteak. Okay, let's get started. Hey there, it's Aaron Blake, and I am in Milwaukee for day 3 of the Republican National Convention. This is the campaign moment from the Washington Post, your guide to the biggest developments in the 2024 election. And I'm just popping in with you right now, it's just me, as my colleagues are spread out reporting all over the convention, and wanted to quickly take you through where things are in this moment. Tonight, we've just learned that President Biden has tested positive for COVID. That happened in Las Vegas, where he had been campaigning. The White House says he's experiencing only minor symptoms like a runny nose, and he's now returning to his home in Rehoboth, Delaware, to quarantine and continue his duties as president. His doctor has also said that he started taking Paxlovid. It's another big piece of news that we will be monitoring on the Democratic side. I'd say the biggest piece of news that broke today, which is Wednesday, just before 2 o'clock Eastern this afternoon, California Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, the party's likely to be next senator from California, is calling on President Biden to drop out of the presidential race. This is one of the highest profile members of the Democratic Party to do so far. There's only been about 24 of them. A lot of them are members of the House that you may not have heard of before. But Congressman Schiff decided to do this in a statement that was put out. He said he had serious concerns about Biden's ability to carry the torch forward for the party. And as is happening all week, of course, my computer is blowing up with messages from my colleagues. Okay, now it's closed. Congressman Schiff said that Biden is one of the most consequential presidents in our nation's history, but that he also didn't know that he could actually beat Donald Trump in the 2024 race. So we now have 24 Democrats in Congress, a couple of senators, mostly House members, who are calling for Biden to exit the race. So there's a lot to unpack here, and we'll dive into what's happening with President Biden and some of this larger conversation that's happening on the Democratic side on the campaign moment tomorrow. In the meantime, let's turn back to Republicans and what's ahead at the convention. I'd say the biggest speaker on the list for Wednesday night is Ohio Republican Senator J.D. Vance, who, of course, on Monday was selected as Donald Trump's running mate. This is going to be his first big introduction to a lot of Americans. This is a vice presidential pick who might be the most obscure one since Sarah Palin was picked in the 2008 Republican convention to be John McCain's running mate. I think there's a big question with Vance right now about just how the party receives him. Of course, we'd expect convention delegates to have a strong reaction, but there are ways in which he is out of step with certain members of the party. Specifically on foreign policy, he is much more of an isolationist. There are still a significant number of hawkish Republicans. Vance is also a very anti-corporate senator. There are many delegates at the Republican National Convention who come from the business world. And so we'll see how strong the reaction that he gets is. As for the trajectory of this convention, I think we saw a real shift on Tuesday night, and we're going to see if it continues on Wednesday. I'm speaking about 3 words that I highlighted in my newsletter on Tuesday night, and those words are red meat sells. After a pretty kind of vanilla first day of the convention and speakers not really wanting to go too hard at Democrats or cast things in very apocalyptic terms, we really saw that stepped up on Tuesday night with a number of speakers, perhaps most exemplified by Senator Ted Cruz of Texas.
Every day, Americans are dying, murdered, assaulted, raped by illegal immigrants that the Democrats have released. Teenage girls and boys wearing colored wristbands are being sold into a life of sex slavery.
These conventions have been very ominous and dark affairs ever since Donald Trump became the Republican nominee in 2016. 2020 was certainly that way. This is Donald Trump's message, the idea that Democrats are the enemy and that they are destroying the country. And so we'll see how much they push the envelope on that. I think it's safe to say that 4 days since an historic attempted assassination of a former American president, things are actually going back to kind of the way they were before. We're seeing Democrats arguing about their nominee just like they were before. We're seeing Republicans, despite some talks about being more unifying, return to the same kind of rhetoric that they've long employed. So we'll make sure to keep an eye out for how those two things evolve. And also make sure to look out for our next chat tomorrow on the Campaign Moment. We hope to get that up by early afternoon. Remember, there's a link in the show notes that will take you to the sign-up page for my newsletter. That's by the same name as the podcast, The Campaign Moment. I'm trying to write and break down every night the big takeaways from the Republican National Convention. So sign up if you haven't done so yet. It's another good way to follow my reporting and analysis. Today's episode was produced and mixed by Sam Bair. It was edited by Renita Jablonski. I'm Aaron Blake. Talk to you soon. I think I changed my mind. I'm going to skip the panini sandwich and then go for the banh mi. There's a nice banh mi stand right outside the doors of where I am right now. So I'm going to go get that instead. Change my mind.
There's a lot happening these days, but I have just the thing to get you up to speed on what matters, without taking too much of your time. The 7 from the Washington Post is a podcast that gives you the 7 most important and interesting stories, and we always try to save room for something fun. You get it all in about 7 minutes or less. I'm Hannah Jewell. I'll get you caught up with the 7 every weekday, so follow the 7 right now.